Philip Barantini, welcome back to An Actor Despairs. It's so good to have you back. It's a real honor. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks so much for having me back. Yeah.
Oh man, it's such a pleasure. It's so interesting because I haven't had many guests, but a few that have done it twice, and especially since the last time I spoke to you. I mean, I feel like you've just been and rightfully so shot out of a cannon. Boiling Point was such an exceptional film. I mean, it's one of the few films that's like kind of lived with me through the pandemic and onward because it's just so beautiful, and to see you continue everything that you've been doing, and then now with Adolescence, it's amazing, and I'm just so proud of you. So how's the ride been? It's been what, 4 years since I've last spoken to you?
Yeah. Do you know what? Saying shot out of a cannon is a good analogy. That's what it feels like. It feels like I've been going a million miles an hour, but it's amazing. Like I'm having the time of my life. It's what I've wanted to do, and I feel like I'm sort of on a good journey, and I don't want to stop really. But yeah, it's been a ride
I can
so far.
imagine. And as the business has been changing, it's so great to watch justice prevail. But talk to me, like the film was coming out and it was really well received, which was a certainly an interesting time on just a global scale because there were a lot of
Yeah.
people at home. And then I believe you and Steven had the show already conceptualized at that moment, or was that not till a little bit after we spoke when you
As
developed?
in the
But
boiling point.
yeah, sorry, Boeing
Yeah.
Point first. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like that sort of came about. The movie had been out maybe like a few months, and the BBC approached me and said, would you be interested in turning this into a series? And I was like, yeah, sure. I'm not sure where it's going to go, but yeah, of course. And then so Stephen and I had we had a put our heads together and thought, where could this story go? And there was a few ideas about when we sort of come into the story, and we sort of soon realized that it'd be interesting to just sort of continue on 6 months after the end of the movie. And so that's kind of where it came from. And the BBC, they said to us, go away and write a pilot. So we did that. And then as soon as they read the pilot, they greenlit the show straight away. And it was like, oh, okay. So again, it was like this momentum has been just, it's been full on, but like, yeah, I'm very grateful, feel very lucky.
Well, you really deserve it, and I mean that sincerely. I mean, it's just
Thanks,
so
man.
incredible in that film, and now to elongate that into a longer form. Is that was that a really cool experience? Because I know film and television people tend to kind of at this point with streaming think is the same thing, but they are different mediums. So what was that
Yeah.
like? Kind of reconceptualizing something for more of a serial format. Did you kind of have to go back to the drawing board a bit?
Well, yeah, I mean, you because the film, as you know, was shot in one take.
Yeah.
So, one of the things, the early conversations with the BBC was, do we do the series in one take? And Stephen and I, we sort of, well, to be able to be completely honest with you, we already had Adolescence in our heads,
Hmm.
and so we were like, no, we want to do that one as one take. But also, the format is really limited in terms of what you could do, and it only lends itself to a certain amount of like, types of storytelling. So we'd done the one take with Boiling Point, and then the sort of idea we wanted to go into other people's lives and into people's houses, and travel from work with them. So to be able to do that, you need to shoot it conventionally, so that was how we approached the series, and we wanted to bring in new characters and sort of things like that, and so yeah, it had its own challenges because you're already dealing with characters that you've already established. So now, and when we wrote the movie, we weren't thinking ahead. We were like, okay, this is a moment in time. We'll never visit this again. So it's up to the audience to sort of figure out, those little nuggets of people's pockets of people's lives. And so when it came about, we were like, okay, so it was exciting in one breath, but in the other, it was kind of like, oh, we need to really dig deep into these characters now and figure out where they're from and who they are, So that was a huge challenge, but I feel like we did it justice, I think, and it was it was a lot of fun to explore further. But for the in the movie, one of the big questions that always came up to me was, is Stephen's character, is he dead or is he alive? At the end, and in my head, I always said it's up to the audience.
Yeah.
But when the BBC had approached us, it was like, is he dead or alive? And I was like, do you want him to be dead or alive? We want him to be alive. I was like, well, he's alive then.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
And talk to me, because like I feel like, I would put you in with like Brady Corbett and Sean
Oh,
Baker, I remember I did an episode of television called The Gilded Age, and the lead actor of that played Steven's brother on Boardwalk Empire, and he was
oh
talking
yeah.
about Boiling Point. I was like, I know him. He was amazing. Like
Wow.
Philip Barantini's great. And he was like, oh man, he crushed it. And I feel like
Oh,
that film was like one of that time, because there were so many people at home. It just became
yeah.
such a topic of conversation. And talk to me, because it is British, did you
Yeah.
feel like it kind of globalized you in some ways? Like, did you see it do well? Because I always tell people that show was before, or the film was before The Bear, got going. It was like just
Yeah.
so incredible.
I mean, the subject matter and the sort of hospitality in general is a global thing. We all have
Yeah.
restaurants, and they tend to sort of work in the same way. You know what I mean? There's like a sort of not a rule, but like there's a format and there's a way of the way that restaurants run, because it's and that's the same across the globe. So I think that was why it was, it spoke to so many people across the world. So yeah, it was to be honest, I had no idea. Again, look, we shot this in 2020, and then we were all got sent into lockdown, and we just made a little film because off the back of a short film that we made, not expecting it to do what it did. But you're right, the pandemic and everything sort of, it made people sit in the houses, and so they were able to watch films like Boiling Point and things like that, which who knows what it would have done if we were in a different sort of scenario. I don't know, but I'm so like, yeah, I'm so like just blown away by the response it's had.
Yeah, I mean, it really was such beautiful work. And at that time, did your phone start? Obviously, I know the BBC called you to continue that, but was your phone ringing in a way that it hadn't really quite in some time? And did you kind of have to really figure out what you wanted to do outside of the TV show next? Like, where was your
Yeah.
mind at creatively?
Yeah, I mean, I've always had that sort of mentality of always thinking ahead, and I've got lots of things in the pipeline and lots of development that I'm working on, and ideas and things like that. I've always been like that. So, you know, I it was a case of I felt a bit of a shift in terms of like what like not having to sort of pitch as much for certain things, or being able to sort of send scripts to certain people, and they actually read it, or you know what I mean, or they sort of listen or pay attention or whatever. So I did feel a shift in that respect, but I just want to make good work, and I think I suddenly realized, okay, I need to be quite selective in terms of what I do, because yeah, there was lots of things being sent to me, and some really fantastic stuff actually, and some stuff that I didn't feel really matched my style, or I didn't feel like I could bring. Look, if something comes to me and it has to be an absolute 10 out of 10 for me to then go, what could I do with this project? You know what I mean? How can I like turn it on its head, or make something really cool? And if I can't see that, and I feel like what, I know another director is going to do this justice more than I would, so then I have to really sort of let it go, or whatever. So I'm being a lot more selective, and a bit more yeah, selective is the right word, I think.
Yeah, I love that. And just to kind of, for the American audience, since we last spoke, particularly here in America, we've kind of seen these huge IP, big budget films have really kind of capsized independent filmmaking in America. And it's made it really hard for anyone to kind of make a living even doing a great film. I think Sean Baker came out and gave a speech this weekend at the Indie Spirit Awards that,
Yeah.
you spend 3, 4 years doing these films and you have no money at the end of it, even campaigning.
Yeah.
Would you say that's kind of analogous to the UK landscape as well?
Yeah, I think it is exactly the same. It's the same across. Yeah, definitely across the pond as well for us because, you have to scrimp and get money. Is on boiling point. If you look at the opening credits, there's about 15 executive producers, and logos at the front because all of these people put money into it. You know what I mean? And if you're going to do it truly independently, you're looking at for money at all different places, and so by the end of it, you have to pay all of those people back, and then depending on how well the film does, it's like it's never going to make enough money for you to then start to earn money. So those independent films are truly like passion led, I think. And I that's how I lead with everything that I do is I've got to feel 100% passionate about it. And for me it's like I'm working on something at the minute which is the biggest thing I've done to
I
date. And
heard. I'm excited to talk about that later.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
of
Yeah,
course.
yeah, yeah.
But ultimately when you boil it down, it's all the same.
Mhm.
You might have some bigger toys to play with, or you can cast bigger named actors, or but even then it's not necessarily always the case. It's like, but for me it can be quite daunting, but then when you really sort of narrow it in, it's like it's all the same. My job
Yeah,
is the same, and ultimately, my attention shouldn't be steered in any other way other than with what I know that I can do in terms of like performance and sort of how I want things to look as well. Um, so if that's how I look at it now, you know what I mean? It's not. Um, but yeah, but in terms of the independent film world, I do think it's getting um, it's getting more attention now, and I think people are certainly for this year's um, awards campaigns and all of the movies that have come through this year, which are incredible. I think it's important that we sort of pay attention to that now because those films are special. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Really
absolutely.
special.
And beautifully said. Talk to me, about Adolescence. So you guys did the TV show at Boiling Point. You mentioned that you kind of already had this one idea. How did this come about? Where did it really start to kind of you two discuss it? Because Stephen wrote it. Am I correct in saying that?
He co-wrote it, yeah. He
Co-wrote
directed.
it.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Wow.
So the original thing, or the original idea, sparked from a general meeting that I had off the back of Boiling Point with Plan B. Um,
Brad
and
Pitt's company.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah, amazing. Great
yeah.
work. Yeah,
I mean, I was a huge fan of all of their work. I
the
love the company.
best. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we had a general meeting, and Jeremy Kleiner, who's the one of the CEOs there, he just said to me, like, we'd love to work with you and Stephen on something, maybe something in a similar style to Boiling Point. And at the time I was like, oh God, really? Do I really want to put myself through that again? But then he was like, maybe something in the TV space, which has kind of not really been done in there's been episodes of shows that have been shot in one take, but I don't think there's ever been a full season or full series of something. And so I went away with Stephen and we had a chat, and we sort of came up with this idea. And at the time there'd been quite a lot of young men, teenage boys who were picking up a knife and stabbing girls from for the same age as them. And we were both sort of asking ourselves why is this happening? Like, why are these young boys doing this? What's driving to do this? And so that was kind of the spark of the idea for us, really. And then we went away and we pitched it to Plan B, and then we got Warp Films on board, who are incredible. and Jack Thorne then sort of came on board. We pitched it to Jack, and Jack came on board, and it was just a really. It felt like everybody was, in the same, felt the same way as Stephen and I in terms of the way we wanted to tell this story. And so that's how it came about. And then Jack and Stephen went away, and most of all of the ideas were in Stephen's head. Like Stephen's an incredibly creative. He's got an incredibly creative brain. So, he tends to have all these ideas in his head, and he needs to get them out. So, in order to just like spit it all out, Jack would be there. The two of them would have these sessions, and it would just. Yeah, so it was really collaborative, creative, sort of process.
Wow. And was this the first time Stephen, and for the audience listening, Stephen Graham, that he wrote something like all the way
Yeah,
through?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Incredible. And then
Yeah.
once they got the pilot, did you kind of come together, or I don't even know if we still call it that in television anymore, but the first episode,
Yeah.
did you kind of touch base with them creatively and figure out where you wanted to go?
Yeah, so obviously with something like this, Jack's written numerous plays, but he's never written in a way where, you can't cut to another scene, or you can't cut to another, time of day or night.
Yeah.
So, I had to sort of, at times he would be writing parts of it, and I'd have to tweak it and say, Jack, we can't do that physically. We wouldn't be able to do that. And so it was kind of, a bit of back and forth in that respect. But yeah, he wrote the pilot, and we were all on the same page with it, and then we got commissioned to write the rest of it, and yeah, it felt quite felt quite seamless. I'm not going to lie, it was I don't want to say it was easy, because it definitely wasn't easy.
No way.
I think the team just, I think because we were all on the same page and we were all driving in the same direction, it felt like it was a real special,
I mean, talk to me, because it is such beautiful work. I feel like even for you, like the anxiety of all the planning and everything that must go right, and you said Jack had written a lot of theater, and it's so perfect for this. It is very theatrical and such a grounded, and you just live there for that moment in the best sense of that term. How did you guys start to kind of, as the scripts were starting to get finalized, figure out how to block this whole thing, both for the camera and for the actors?
Well, it's so important to get my cinematographer Matthew Lewis on board as early as possible, because he ultimately is the one who's going to be. He's almost like another character,
Yeah.
And so we had to. We'd sent him the scripts, and then Matt and I, we'd have to go out and find the locations, and then we'd map it out really on we draw all the camera positions out, and draw out where all the actors needed to be. And then once we'd done that, we would get the actors. None of the actors would be on set until all of that planning was in place, because we had to find, on a normal job, you can find a location, and that location will be, you could go anywhere for the location, because it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? You just find the right location that you want to shoot in. Whereas with this, all the locations had to be in the similar vicinity, in a specific vicinity. Like, for example, the police station needed to be within a 3-minute drive from the house. Things like that, which you don't normally have to think about in a conventional way when you're shooting conventionally. So it was important to have him on board, and to plan it all out and make sure everyone was happy with it, like the locations department, the sound team, so having everybody on board at an early stage was key. Whereas you wouldn't normally do that. You'd have people will come in a bit later or whatever, because all they're doing is coming in and recording the sound, for example. But they have to be part of this dance as well. It's a dance. It's a choreographed dance,
Yeah, I mean, it's so beautiful. And, I feel like in Boiling Point, you have seemingly a single location, but in this one, in episodes, you're jumping to 2, 3, and you do mention it's within a vicinity, but like, how do you plan for that? Because I feel like even with the you know, in life, everything, even if you plan to go to the deli, you trip into someone, like it's so masterfully done. I feel like if one thing goes wrong, you got to go back to one. So
Yeah.
talk to me about that journey. Then at a certain point, do the actors and you rehearse in that space?
Yeah.
Or you do. Okay. So it wasn't like at a theater that you rented.
No. We it was so important that we were in the space from the word go, really. So we built the sets much earlier than what we did. So, for example, the police station is a set
Mm.
inside a studio, and so when we drive into the police station, we're actually driving into the studio.
Wow.
Um, and so we once we built that set, that's when we could rehearse with the actors. So it was important to do we sort of rehearse it in stages, in sections, you know. And we try to do it chronologically so that the actors then becomes muscle memory for the actors. So we'd start with the beginning, the very beginning, and then we move on. Then we go back to the beginning. Then we move on and on, back to the beginning, on. Do you know what I mean? So we start to build it up like that so that the actors can get the dialogue in their brains and the movements as well.
Mm.
But yeah, it was. But you know, like you say, anything can happen. So once I've rehearsed it, once we've done all the rehearsals and we've done everything we can, then we shoot it. So there was 2 weeks rehearsal with actors. The first week is just the actors and myself and Matt Lewis, the
No
camera.
cameras rolling at this
Yeah,
point.
we didn't have any cameras rolling, but
Mm.
we were recording it on like a GoPro or a phone just so we could capture it, and then if there's anything that we needed to tweak, then we could tweak it. Then the second week is the tech rehearsal. So everybody's on set then. Everybody, you know, the actors are not in costume, but by the end of that week, we would put the actors in costume. And then on the shoot week, obviously 5 days, then we would come in the morning. We would shoot it from 10 a.m. till 11. So it's 1 hour.
Wow.
And then we would have a long break. So like I say 3 or 4 hours. Where I would give notes and etc. And you know, we'd tweak anything we needed to tweak, and then we'd come in the afternoon and we'd shoot it again. So we'd do it twice every day for 5 days. So by the end of the week, we'd have 10 times the episode to choose
Wow.
from. So then we would choose which one on the Friday. If we go away the weekend, we'd choose on the Monday, and then that episode is locked. It's done.
No
You know,
way.
and then we come in on the Monday and we start rehearsing the next episode.
And with that, and when you're shooting it a few times, you know, there's a lot of times the characters are speaking to each other across the table. You know, you
Yeah.
can't traditionally cross shoot that. Then are you in that times you're doing takes? Are you like, do you know exactly which actor you want to highlight
Yeah.
speaking and then switch, or there's no room for improv on the camera on that?
There's not really room for improv. There could have been room for improv, but we rehearsed it so meticulously that, you know, with Boiling Point, for example, a lot of the dialogue was sort of achieved in the rehearsals. And then when we come to shoot it, I said to the actors, they can be as loose as they like, you know. Whereas with this, the script was so solid, and because of the subject matter, and it's so important that they're saying the right words, within reason. Obviously, you know, I always like
Yeah.
to actors to be able to play and feel it, you know, and be real and be in the moment. But in terms of the camera, Matt and Lee, there was 2 camera operators. They were handing the camera off to each other, passing it amongst the 2 of them, just because it was so much work for them. You know,
Yeah.
there's no way they could have done it on their own. Just one camera operator.
Especially with the cars. Like, I don't even know how do
Yeah,
you
yeah,
get,
yeah,
oh
yeah,
my God.
yeah. Well, that's what I mean. You know, one of them would be
Yeah.
inside the van, and the other one would pass the camera, and then he would then run to the next location where when the van pulls up, he takes the camera off him, and then he walks into the police station. So
I mean, you made The Revenant look like a student film after you're watching it. I mean, I'm like, I can't wait till people see it. It's going to be incredible. But
yeah,
I mean, was it enjoyable shooting that, or was the stress really high?
it's so enjoyable.
Oh,
Honestly,
I'd love to hear that.
the stress is high, but listen, I love my job, and like I wouldn't do it if I was, you know. They always say, you know, go to a job that you love, otherwise, and then if it doesn't become a job, it's not work, is it?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
totally.
So coming every day and having to problem solve, or just working with such an amazing people who are so collaborative and also so on the same page as you, and we were all in this sort of boat together. Um, it's so enjoyable, and when you finally get the result at the end that you've all been working towards,
Yeah.
that is like incomparable. I can't explain it.
Oh, I love to
Yeah,
hear that. And talk to me about casting. I mean, Stephen Graham's obviously a worldwide treasure, but particularly in the
yeah,
UK. And then, speaking of the pandemic and shows, Top Boy in America, I feel like took off, and actually
yeah.
Walter. Like, how's it working with all these, and also everyone else? It's so well casted. Were these people that Stephen already knew that he wanted to work with, or talk to me about the different actors you have in the project?
Some of them were people that Stephen and I knew. Some of them were people that Stephen knew before. Ashley, I've wanted to work with Ashley for a long time. We've been trying to sort of get something off the ground, and he is just wonderful. We it was very early on when we decided that we wanted to get Ashley in that role because it's something that audiences have never seen him play,
Yeah,
and that really excited me. I'm always about things like that, thinking outside the box and giving the audience something that they don't expect, that they least expect. Um, and he nailed it, and he sort of really embraced it. He's a wonderful, wonderful human being. Um, and then, yeah, the other actors were a lot of people that I knew or wanted to work with, and we cast quite a lot of them as well. Like, for example, Owen Cooper is the young.
he
He
plays
plays
Jamie.
Jamie. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
he'd never acted before in his life.
No way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
How did you find him?
we scoured the north of England because we knew this was going to be set in the north of England, so we needed someone with an accent that reflected that. And so my casting director Shaheen Baig, who's just incredible, she's fantastic at finding new talent. So she went to like youth clubs and she went to drama classes and she went to malls and just gave out flyers to people and so Owen was doing some drama classes. I think he'd been there for a couple of months or something. So he hadn't really done anything. It wasn't. I don't think it was something that he was even thinking about pursuing as a career. He loves football. Sorry, soccer.
Yeah.
And so he he was just doing it to as another extra thing to do outside of school. And so he auditioned along with a bunch of others, and it was quite clear early on that he was just something special.
Yeah.
And I think what it is because he didn't have any sort of preconceived ideas or techniques that he was trying to get out of his toolbox. Do you know what I'm trying to say? And
Absolutely.
so it was like, he was doing what I'd been taught as an actor when I studied Meisner for 2 years. And what he was actually doing is exactly what Meisner teaches you, which is listen and respond
Yeah.
naturally, and he was just doing it. And I
Wow.
was just blown away. I was like, so I would, I put him through his paces a little bit in terms of the auditions because I was like, I need to know whether this kid can really go there and really, because it's a lot of work for any actor to do what we asked him to do, to sort of be in, to be switched on for an hour
Yeah.
nonstop, it is a lot for a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
It's a 13-year-old, but for any 30-year-old, you know what I mean? Someone who's a seasoned professional.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, he was just a real gem.
Oh, he knocked it out of the park. He was incredible.
Yeah.
And for the audience listening, because I'm sure people will ask, every episode is truly one take. There's
Yeah.
no invisible cuts.
No, none. Not what none
Wow.
whatsoever, no.
It's such outstanding work. I mean, talk to me about working. Was this your first time working with Netflix?
Yeah, it was the first time working with them directly. I had a movie that we sold to them called Accused, and I worked a little bit with them. But yeah, first time working properly with them. Yeah.
And how did that feel? I mean,
Oh,
they're
I mean,
yeah,
they are so good, so supportive. Like honestly, this is such it was a challenge for them. Not a challenge. It was so they'd never done this before, right?
yeah,
They'd never. nobody's done a one take TV show. So it was, you know,
4 episodes, it's just
4
so
episodes.
incredible. Yeah.
And so, for them, it's like for example, they would usually wait until the edit to then come in and give notes and say, maybe we could switch this scene around, or can we try a different take on this one? You know what I mean? That's when they would give their notes. But for this, they realized quite quickly that they couldn't do that. They have to do that in the rehearsal process. So while we were rehearsing, they would come to set and they would be like, they'd watch it and then they give notes. And the notes were never huge, you know what I mean? Some of them were fantastic notes, actually. And so I think they were nervous about that. But at the same time, I never felt the nerves from them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they were, like I say, really supportive, and just an amazing experience to sort of work with them. And now, as the sort of show is starting to come out, and the trailer dropped today. I don't know when this episode of the podcast will be out, but I think
it's coming out right when the show's out. So at this point,
right,
everyone
so the
can
show's
watch.
Out now,
yeah, the show's out. The show's out.
Yeah.
This is next week.
Yeah. So it's just the Netflix. They're just huge, right? So it's like we had a meeting with them about the publicity, and it's just like, oh, okay, this is from something that we just made in a small town in the north of England is now becoming the idea of them getting it out to the whole world on the same day is like, oh, okay. All right.
And it literally the whole world. There's no like local market anymore. You don't do territory. It's awesome. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah. Same day. Yeah. Everyone can see it. It's like, okay, great.
How has it been, because obviously for the audience listening the first time that you and I spoke, you and Steven have such a long, amazing friendship, to have another project in the can, and then this time to like go with your best mate and get to go do press for this incredible show. I mean, that must feel so amazing to have another one done. I'm just so proud of the work that you're doing.
Yeah, it is. It is like, we are just like, we're like brothers, you know what I mean? It's like we often sort of, have a moment and just be like, oh my God, look what we're doing. Just two lads from Liverpool, like, on this journey. Like it's we can't quite believe it most of the time, but it's so, he's just the most beautiful human being. Like, and I, I really, to have him as a friend and sort of, championing me as well, and, really sort of supporting me from day one, really. I don't think I would honestly be what I'm doing now if it wasn't for Stephen and his amazing wife, Hannah, because, they championed the very first short film that I did. And then they came on board Boiling Point, the short film. And that's where the journey really began for us. Obviously I'd known Stephen back in the day when we were on Band of Brothers together, over 20 years ago, but we really sort of became really sort of close, back in 2018 when we sort of started this journey together. And now we've got a couple of other projects that we're working on, together. And it's, this is a long game for us.
Yeah. And I absolutely love that. And, obviously you mentioned, you got to work with Netflix for this, but you sold a movie. Can we talk about a few of the other things we did before we jump into the big announcement that came out a couple of weeks ago? Talk to us about what else you've been doing since, Boiling Point, the TV and the film, and now Adolescence.
Well, I did a show called Malpractice, which was on over here, which did well, which is like a medical thriller. Accused was a movie that my company produced and I directed, which is on Netflix, which is about a young boy who's wrongly accused of a terrorist attack in a London train station. And it's about the online sleuths and what that does to a person.
Did you write this one as well?
No, I didn't write it. I was across the scripts, but that all sort of came about from the pandemic. Again, it was like, I really want to make something which is one location, easy to do, and we can shoot it during the pandemic. And that's how that sort of came about.
Wow.
Malpractice, Boiling Point, the TV series was, and then obviously Adolescence has been in the works for quite a while. And then and now this one I'm on now. Yeah,
Can we speak about Enola Holmes 2, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Enola Holmes three. Enola Holmes
Oh,
three.
three,
Yeah,
three, three. Okay, amazing.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah,
how did that come
yeah,
together? I mean, Millie Bobby Brown was this something that
yeah.
came before Adolescence or came after or
It was actually during Adolescence because Jack Thorne is the writer of all the Enola Holmes movies.
oh, wow.
And I just had a call with Legendary Entertainment, and they we chatted about the movie and potentially the direction that they were looking for to take it in, and I really bought into it really, and so I pitched an idea that I had about where I'd like to take it, and then yeah, and now I'm in prep.
Amazing. How does it feel? I mean, this is like a proper big budget,
Yeah,
lots of toys and gadgets. Are you
yeah, yeah,
excited?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It feels amazing. I mean, I've been very lucky. I've got my team, that I've used on pretty much everything. Most of my team are back, so it's just like, it's just like we're going to work together every day again. It's just like this is, it just so happens that this is a huge Hollywood movie.
Yeah. What are we talking? 6, 9 months here? How long are you going to be?
Yeah, I mean, the shoot is 11 weeks, and then yeah,
Oh,
obviously it takes a long time to. Obviously, I've been in prep a little while, and um, can't talk about the story or anything
yeah.
about what it's about, but it's an exciting installment of the franchise.
I love that. And it's going to be so you're going to have to come back when that comes out.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love
But
to.
but talk to me, what's most interesting to you and you want to do next because obviously you've done incredible work in this one take. I imagine at a certain point, even if the phone rings, maybe if it's Nolan, he wants you to do second unit on the Odyssey, but you probably want to switch it up a little bit. Do you have some scripts that you've written or writers that you worked with? Because I mean, I feel like some of the best writing, not just from Stephen Knight, but is coming out of the UK. There's so many incredible
Yeah,
writers there. I mean, what
yeah.
what do you want to do next?
I mean, I've got several projects that I'm working on at the minute. There's another movie that is it was announced actually called The Bostonian, and that is based off a short story by Dennis Lehane,
Mm.
and we're currently casting that at the moment. And then I've got there's a bunch of things from my production company. It's all made up productions, which we've got a couple of books that we've optioned. There's a few a couple of TV things, like bigger scale TV things,
Wow.
and then there's a couple of movies as well. Independent movies, but also there's a movie that's a studio's interested in as well.
I
So ultimately for me, it's like I said before, it has to be a complete no-brainer for me to I really need to immerse myself because that's what I like to do, and so I think spending a good year of your life working on a project, which is what it is from start to finish, you have to be in love with it. So yeah, that's important to me. But yeah, lots and lots of things happening, and
well,
yeah.
I mean, I heard last Friday that, Amazon's got Bond now, so we need to make sure that
Yeah.
you get in there.
Yeah.
Stephen Graham could be a great Bond.
It could be a great one.
I would love to see that direction you take it in. But
Yeah.
for the creatives listening, right now, especially since we last spoke, I feel like at that time there was still sort of what people like to refer to as the streaming wars, and there was this huge surge of content from all these people kind of trying to compete. But by and large, Netflix and YouTube have kind of mostly won that, and I don't think people really think of YouTube traditionally as in the content game, but they are, and it's a really great
Yeah.
place for indie filmmakers. But for the people listening now, the young filmmakers and actors, if you were to start now and kind of see the way the landscape works, I don't know if it's true in the UK, but we're kind of it's getting harder and harder from what I would call the middle class filmmaking to exist here. We don't really see 10, $15 million films anymore. It's like 150 or 100,000. There's no in between.
Mhm.
Any advice you would have for those people trying to kind of get their feet wet and start? How would you approach it if you were starting now?
I mean, it depends really. If I was starting now, you know, I would try and get like I was very lucky because I was an actor for 25 years. So I've
Yeah.
been on sets most of my adult life. You know what I mean? So it was I already sort of I already had an idea of what it was like to be on set and what, I was so interested in everybody's jobs. But in terms of, it depends where you're starting really. If you're starting from nothing, just, watch movies, learn as much as you possibly can. Try and get I like to invite people to shadow me on set for, like
Amazing.
a week at a time or whatever, or however long really. I try to get as many people in as possible. Just because I think I wish that I would have had that, you know, known that that was an option. You know what I mean? I wish that so you can go to film school and film school will teach you the basics, I'd say.
Yeah.
They teach you what you kind of need to know, but there's no better place to learn how it all works than to be on set.
Mhm.
And I think you can apply to shadow directors. If you Most directors will will take on shadowers, on most of the jobs. I certainly do. But yeah, I would say just, depending on what you want to do, just believe in yourself and don't. I always say this to actors, but it does apply to, I think, everybody. Um, just stay in your own lane.
Yeah.
Don't worry about what the other people are doing. Don't worry about what they're doing or how they're succeeding, because you will get so in your own head. Nothing else matters about other than your own path. And if you believe in yourself and you just listen to yourself and don't listen to anybody else, don't follow anybody else, then then you will succeed. I believe that.
I love that. It's beautiful advice, and thank you for sharing that. And I also just want to say I love that you bring people from project to project. I mean, that's a sign of a
Yeah.
amazing human and director and talent, and it's just such an honor to always speak to you. So, Philip Barantini, I'm so proud of you. Thank you for coming back on, man. And when the next project comes out, you got to come back, man.
I'd love to. I would love
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
Always a
Well,
pleasure, man. Always a
from
pleasure.
from the bottom of my heart, thank you for coming on. You're a true artist, and I'm always grateful for your time. And man,
Likewise, man.
Adolescence out now. Make sure.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right, brother.